Hi everyone! Today I have the pleasure of interviewing my good friend Liz Short from Short Solutions, and we are going to be talking about some easy upgrades that any association can make this year. So let's spin on over to the computer and we'll get started with our interview. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm so excited to have Liz Short from Short Solutions here, and we're going to be talking about what you can do on a really practical level to upgrade your tech stack. And this isn't the video where we suggest some $50,000 platform off the bat, but we're talking about a way of looking at your tech a little differently and how to leverage your tech stack to get a better return on what you already have. But before we jump into that, I want to introduce Liz. Liz, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Thanks so much, Catherine. My name is Liz Short. I am a business and technology consultant. I am co-founder and owner of the Short Solutions, and we help companies and executives optimize their people, processes, and technology. And so we believe in finding technical solutions for real life problems that help people optimize how they do their job and, get stuff done in a faster way.
And that's one of the ways that I originally started working with Liz. And one of the things that we talked about early on was this idea of having a source of truth and how important a good source of truth is. So, could you explain to everyone when they're going down this whole technology journey, what do you mean by source of truth, Liz?
Such a great question, Catherine. I'm so glad you asked. A lot of times, the first question people come to me with is, what technology is the best, or where do I need to invest my money? And any technology that you're going to implement is only as good as the data you can provide it. And so until you have the information that you want to automate, organized in some sort of way, it's not really worth going on any further of a journey. And so that can very simply mean a spreadsheet, Google Sheet, Excel, whatever your spreadsheet of choice is, but a way that you have your members' information that is relevant to what you are trying to automate, organized in a way that is accurate and continuously updated. Two very key important points, I think, is the first step of any move to a better technology experience throughout your organization.
Well, and that brings up such an amazing point because even if you are able to have the best tech stack in the world or move to the best tech stack, if you don't have good data going in, it really doesn't make any difference. And at some point in the journey, it has to happen where the list gets cleaned up. And it could be at the beginning where it's less painful,
Yep.
or it can be later in the process. And if it's later in the process, it can be a lot more painful.
And data is continuously changing, whether or not it's within a piece of technology or it's just the lives of your members, right? People move, email addresses change, members get added, members get removed. And so it is necessary to organize it to move to your technology solution, but we also have to have processes to continuously update that to keep the data clean as we move to. So earlier, the better to get it cleaned and implement a process to keep it clean as well too.
And something that you brought up to me when we were talking about a project probably about a year ago with a company that was talking to different sales teams from different providers, such as HubSpot, for example. And you talked about how important it was to know what you need before talking to the sales team and really defining that. And
Yep.
can you talk a little bit about that process that people need to go through in defining their needs and how it's so much more than just a vague sense of what you need, or yes, we need a database, but like really digging into it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple different key points here, right? Most of us are not experts in sourcing technology. This is not something we do on a daily basis. And so most people walk into sourcing technology or technology demos, at understandably so, a disadvantage because they're not really even sure how to approach this situation. So if you don't know, no fault of your own, right? You have to understand how these things work. And number one, I think understanding that you do need to prepare a little bit is key. So to your point, I really recommend that people start by defining what are the problems that they're trying to solve and what are their must-haves, they're nice to haves, and there may be some days, right, to be able to solve those problems. Because any piece of technology you look at, and a lot of times we're talking about a HubSpot, which is a CRM, customer or client relationship manager. These pieces of software have so many different features and functions and bells and whistles and integrations. And, it's not a standard set of things that they do. And so it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison, first of all, between different pieces of software. It's not always what works best for someone else works best for you. You really have to understand what your needs are and then look at what those pieces of software do and how well they meet those needs before you even look at price or reviews or anything else like that. Because if you really need it to do A, B, and C, and it does D through Z, who cares that it does that many things if it's not doing what you need to do? So sitting down and figuring out what you actually need in priority order, I know it's not fun, is really important before you get the salesperson in the room. No shade to my salespeople out there. I love you, but their job is to pitch their product, not necessarily define your needs and understand how their product can fit your needs or what your priorities are. It's not their job, right? And so you have to have that onus to come to the table.
And to have the conversations internally, because a lot of times the sales teams or the member management teams have very different needs from the communications
Yep.
teams, and
Yep.
sometimes there's a legislative affairs team.
Yep.
So to understand everybody's need stakes before starting to look for a system is so critical.
And I would add to that, you need to add your security team, your IT team, whether that's an outsourced provider or an internal resource, to make sure that you have the right connectivity, the right security, and you're structuring your data flow and integration, which sounds complicated. It can be, but also it can be simple in the right way. And so all of those things are important to and people and players to identify and come to the table with what their needs are before we get into the room with these vendors.
Something that I've personally run into, and I know you have as well, is that sometimes you're not shown a working demo in a sales conversation. Sometimes it's more of a promise from a salesperson, or in the documentation, they say they can do X, Y, Z, but when it comes to practical implementation, that falls short. And I'll give an example. Connecting websites or connecting payment processors, sometimes those CRM systems don't necessarily have the level of connectivity that you might need with your payment processor, and you might need to suddenly come up with a custom solution that's 6 months down the road from doing this implementation process, and it didn't come up until then, but then you're stuck and you have to just start figuring it out. So I think that piece, that working demo and really understanding, again, going back to understanding your needs, helps identify those potential pitfalls ahead of time.
Absolutely. I love it. And I have clients that I work with that they send a list of requirements they have with things that they want to see to the vendor before they get on the call. And that is your right. You are, you are the person that they are trying to sell. So don't feel like you are putting these people out, right? Hey, these are the things that are important to us. We would like you to set it up so we can see this, we can see this, we can see this. And if they ignore that and show you something else, first red flag. And if they tap dance around it, or it's on the roadmap, it's going to be delivered X, add 3 months, 6 months, a year to that number, whatever they say. It's just, and again, it's not misinformation. It's just the nature of technology delivery and how software works today. And so Absolutely. Put yourself in the driver's seat and, tell them the things that are important to you. So you make the use of that time too, right? Sitting through an hour demo and not seeing anything around the features or functionality you care about isn't a good use of either of your time.
And you've really taught me that from working with you and learning how to be an advocate and go into those conversations advocating for your organization. This isn't a time to be passive. This is a
100%.
time to be an advocate for yourself and your organization.
100%. And you are the client in this instance, and you are trying to find the best software solution that makes the best use of the resources of your organization and helps your members out. And so this starts at the demo. And again, if you are not seeing the responsiveness that you want before you sign the contract, that is a huge red flag of the service level you expect to see after you sign the contract. And so I think it's really important to be involved and to understand, I like to say who your vendor partners are and making sure those software solutions really are going to be ones that work for you and work with you as well too.
Well, and not everyone can do everything well. So many people say that they can do a suite of 37 things, and that can be an association management system,
Yep.
it can be a sales system.
Yep.
But the truth is that it can probably do certain things at a very high level, some things at a mid level, and some things at a lower level, maybe
Yep.
not to the quality that you want. And you really have to go into it with your eyes open, knowing at what level are each of these segments operating at? And I'll give an example. A website. If a website is built with your CRM system, does it function the way you really need it to?
Yep.
Because some of them, it's more of a nice to have add-on that they bolted on and haven't really done anything with since 2012. And
Yep.
that might not quite be as useful for you.
Well, absolutely, especially when you're talking about something like a website that's going to have to integrate with multiple different things. If those integrations aren't being updated, that is going to be a problem, right? And maybe you're a brand new non-for-profit who's just getting set up, and maybe you do just need a plug and play website for 2 months while you get something else built out. But to your point, understanding what you actually need. I think another great example is a scheduling tool, right? Almost
Oh, yep.
any like 3 years ago, you had to pay for a Calendly or something like that. Now it's really hard to buy any piece of software in that area and not have some sort of scheduling tool built in. So even if you need that, what do you already have within other software, and then what are the holes that you're trying to solve as well too? To your point, you might need 5 things, but 2 of them you already have a solution for, so you just need the other 3 in a way that integrates with those 2 as well too. So really important to understand the things that they do well and the things that they need and where those 2 things overlap. And one of the biggest things that you can understand is how your data, your members, and your website all interact. And so website and CRM integration is key when you think about long-term data management. I think, and to your point, custom integration is doable, but it gets expensive and it's
Yep.
really hard to maintain as well too. So just things to think about as you're going forward for sure.
And I'd add payment processors to that too. Make
Yep.
sure that you really
Yep.
understand those
All of those
areas.
different integrations and how those are
Yep.
all moving through, because there will be connectors that you're going to have and they're going to have to move through in the right way. And just making sure that architecture is right between those systems is crucial.
So, for the person who might be just starting out on this journey, or they're a newer organization, or they don't have a huge budget, some of these things sound a little bit daunting. What can they do to take it one step at a time and have some basic functionality to start with before maybe taking things to the next level?
Absolutely. So, a couple different things. I would say, first of all, evaluate what tools you have right now, right? What functionality do you have within whatever software suite you have, right? Whether you might have Gmail, whether you might have some different, constant contact. No, some MailChimp, some different things like that, right? There are features and functionality that's there. Are you using all of them that are applicable to you, right? I think is the first and foremost. But then the other thing that I say is figure out what your most important priorities are and how you can start chipping those away one part at a time. There is a lot of software that has free or very cheap introductory level pricing to do things like mail campaigns and a basics function, right? And so maybe we're not ready to do a full website integration, right? Maybe we just want to start with sending out some email campaigns to segmented audiences. Look at what software is out there that you can grow with to where you want it to be, but might have a basic or even free version that you could start out with some of the features that you need and then build that process up as well too. Some kind of basic things that you can do to start easing into it. And remember, the software that you have is usually, if it's newer technology, always evolving and rolling out new features and functionality. And so make sure you're also looking at a process for how you're looking at what's coming every month, every quarter, every 6 months, whatever that cadence is for you, and implementing those things that are coming free with your software subscription, right? That they didn't have when you signed up 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. There's a lot of new things that are always coming that a lot of times we don't look at to roll out. And so those are some really good ways to make good use of your money and start to, piece by piece grow into a more robust solution that's looking, at your client, your member online experience from an end-to-end process.
And if we're looking at like the very first steps and okay, what are the first things that we can do as a baby step? That automation of communication can be so huge. It takes so much time off of the staff,
Yep.
and the ability to segment your audiences now within your association is so powerful because you don't have to send the same e-blast to everyone. You can have a journey that's just for you, your new members, or just for your Gen Z members.
Yep.
And that is the superpower of where we're at with some of these softwares right now. And you don't have to do the crazy, $50,000 solve to get there.
Correct. Correct. Well, and I think again, free software that has this technology is out there. And, you could have someone who is has a Gen Z label, is a prospective client, a prospective member, is a past member, right? All of these is a vendor, is a fellow association, and really be able to craft these different messages to stay in front of these people and nurture the relationships in a really, really powerful way. I think a lot of times the feedback I always hear is, oh, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to annoy people, right? We are used to getting emails. As long as you are adding value and communicating in a positive way, these folks are going to want to hear from you or they'll unsubscribe. And so, I always say don't be afraid to send valuable emails as long as you're strategic about how you're segmenting and approaching these audiences.
Exactly. And if you have your customer journeys mapped out or your association member journeys mapped out for those different types of members or stakeholders with the
Yep.
organization, that's going to go such a long way to keeping a good engagement rate,
Yep.
a good open rate, and it will really boost your communication. So it doesn't feel like you're just blindly sending out a million emails to everyone. You don't need to do that anymore. You can have different lanes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And another thing that you and I were talking about is one of those maybe less daunting processes to update is the member experience and the onboarding and renewal process. Because, man, if you get a PDF that you have to fill out and write your credit card information into the PDF. That's a little hard to do in 2025.
It is. It is. It's so a few things there, right? I mean, that is actually not secure and compliant, right? To ask people to send unsecured credit card information. There is a requirement that we securely collect and store information. And so there's just, a huge risk there to begin with. But let's talk about who has a freaking printer these days. Who has even, the expectation of downloading something as well too. And so huge, huge opportunity to make it easier for people to join your organization, right? And finding out how you can really spend a little bit of time looking at that specific journey from decision I want to join to I'm a member, and automating that, making that as quick and as painless as possible, as well as compliant, I think is a huge win. That's, easily done, quote unquote, with some pretty basic software.
And when we're talking about compliance, we don't just mean credit card information. If someone's filling out a web form, for example, the web form address, the phone number, should not be going to your email. That is a compliance red flag. It should be going to a secure location and your website. Yes, you can get an auto email that says so and so signed up, and then you can go into your website database to see that information. But all of that information should not be forwarded to an email because your email can be hacked. It's a problem, and it's a problem so many associations have and don't realize it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, these are just very simple practices and inexpensive ones that's going to mitigate the risk at your association, as well as, I mean, gosh, no one needs more emails either. And so, having a process that not only makes the member sign up experience quicker, easier, and more beneficial, but remove steps by someone on your staff to have to take the information, put it somewhere else. There's so much manual work that's done today that can be automated very easily, as well to save money as well as be compliant. So I think it's a win-win there.
That's very true. It's so easy to just keep doing the same thing month over month, year over year, and not really think about, oh, I have to copy and paste this information into three different places
Yeah.
and to
Well, and
to get away
again,
from
this is
that.
not a lot of times people are like automation, you're getting rid of people. No, no, no. I would rather automate that and have someone, instead of copying a form and putting it in there, have them call the new member, have them send an email, have them hop on a quick 15-minute Zoom, introduce themselves to the organization, right? How do we provide a higher level of customer service by automating tasks that can and data that can be automated so we can really focus on the people instead of people completing a process?
I like that. Focus on the people instead of people completing a process. And Liz, if someone is going to go on this journey of some level of automation or upgrading their tech stack, how can they get in touch with you?
Great question. Two places. I am on LinkedIn, so definitely find me over there on LinkedIn. Shoot me a DM. I'd love to connect with you and learn a little bit more. Or you can check out my website. It is theshortsolution.com, where there's more information about me, my team, and the work that we do.
And Liz also has a fantastic YouTube channel. I'll put the link to that in the comments of this video. And you have some really good content for people over on YouTube as well.
Absolutely. I am starting my YouTube journey as well too. So appreciate that, Catherine. And I am doing content around leadership and the journey in leadership. So I'd love to see you over there.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Liz. And I hope we were able to break down that tech stack journey into something that feels a little bit less daunting and also just give some practical advice on what to do so it doesn't feel like you're trying to scale Mount Everest.
I love it so much. Thanks for having me, Catherine.